And you were asked to, I guess, really speculate or about your apparent comment that in Ottawa, unlike in Windsor, the blockade was, quote, not affecting livelihoods. At least that's what she had noted. Do you recall that?
Like I said, I don't recall the details of our conversation. I think the notes that were presented yesterday were scribe notes. So she had a scribe attached to her, so was writing down what we were conversing about. I didn't have a scribe during this event, so I'm trying to use my independent recollection about the details of that conversation.
Sure, and I just want to be fair to you to make it clear what you can recall and what you can't, which is perfectly fair. Yeah. But I just wanted to return to what you'd said as you speculated about it. You thought that you might have been speaking from your impression gathered driving around Ottawa outside of the downtown core in the Parliament precinct, that it was quite manageable to drive around town, right?
Yes, I believe from my recollection, we were speaking about the Ambassador Bridge being blocked and how it was, if you're familiar with Windsor, it's a one-way into Windsor, and if it's blocked, it makes travel difficult within the whole city. And I recall having conversations just about the economic impacts of that international bridge blockade and those kinds of things. And then I recall relating back to her how the blockade here in Ottawa was affecting the city as a whole, not just the downtown core.
Sure.
Do you agree with me that due to the lack of integration and communication problems, that would lead to a problem ultimately in decision-making throughout the major operations?
Certainly. The information that PLT is able to provide and tell us about conversations they're having with convoy organizers and exit plans, or what the intent of the organizers are, is very important in forming operational plans of how we're going to approach a protest. So being unable to get that information has an impact, yes, in a negative way.
And when I mentioned major operation, I mean after the invocation of the Emergencies Act.
So, though I consider it one giant operation, and the lack of communication had impacts all along, from invocation period prior to and during.
If it didn't improve after the invocation of the Emergencies Act, would you agree that it got worse?
I can't say it got worse. It just seemed to be a similar theme throughout my time as strategic commander, as I continue to hear the lack of communication, the lack of integration. That was a common theme. It didn't seem to increase through one day or the other, whether prior to February 14th or after. It seemed to be a similar theme throughout.
In your view, was the Emergencies Act necessary to end the protest in Ottawa?
Well, that's a loaded question. I'm a police officer. Parliament gives us legislation. We don't make legislation. They provide it to us, and we use it to the best of our abilities. They gave us a piece of legislation to use. We were thankful for it, and we used it to the best of our abilities to incorporate it in our plan.
And in your view, was there a police solution to the demonstrations?
A police solution? Yes.
Policing solution?
There was a solution, and we reached that solution. We had some help with EMCPA, the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act regulations that we have with the province, and the Emergencies Act, but in my humble opinion, we would have reached the same solution with the plan that we had without either of those pieces of legislation.
Within around the same timeline?
Yes.
Okay. Did the police in Ottawa ended up needing the Emergencies Act to tow vehicles?
No.
Explain to us why not.
Well, if we didn't have the Emergencies Act, that would imply that we couldn't tow vehicles. We tow vehicles every day for different things. We have laws under the Highway Traffic Act. We have common law authorities that we use on a regular basis. So if a vehicle is used in the commission of an offense, it's evidence, or whatever the case may be, we have various authorities to seize and or remove or tow that vehicle. So we did not need the Emergencies Act. We had legislation under the province that also assisted us when it comes to towing and removing permits and CVORs and impounding vehicles. But again, we did not explicitly need those authorities to tow a vehicle.
Mm-hmm. And you also said that the police would have managed to put an end to the protest without the Emergencies Act. They would have done so within the timeline that the cell was contemplating before the federal government declared an emergency. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Well, I think it just says what it says. Our operational plan, when we put it in place, we did not have those authorities. It did not suddenly turn us on our heels that we had to change a lot. We just added it to the plan. It helped. I'm not going to say that it was not useful. It certainly, it provided us with some authorities relating to toll, relating to perimeters, relating to preventing people from going into the red zone, et cetera. But we could have done that anyway.